To call our budget hearing to order. Can we please stand? Oh, sorry. Tom is not here today. Pam? Here. Jim McKenzie?
Here.
Sean Onma?
Here.
David Crisafulli?
Here.
And Maura is not here yet. Let's please stand for the pledge. All right, our first order of business tonight is the public hearing on the budget. So our floor to the public, each speaker who signed up is permitted 3 minutes for their comments. Oh, sorry. Thanks. Okay, Jeff? Or Nancy, are you going to start this off?
I'm just going to introduce Nancy Squires, who's going to give our presentation tonight.
Thank you. So as we've commented in many meetings, many times, the goals of the district is to have a budget that is fiscally sound, flexible, foolproof, flowing, and aligned to our strategic goals. It's important to understand where our additional revenue came from this year. We have, as part of all of our revenue in the district, something called foundation aid, which is all general purpose aid that is the district can use for whatever it wants to. We have not for many, many years received our appropriate share of foundation aid. There was a lawsuit, the fiscal equity lawsuit, where the state was sued and small city school districts actually won that lawsuit and the state aid started to come to the districts. Over the last 2 years, we've seen additional foundation aid increases that are way above what we had in the past. Next year in 2023-24, it is the last year of significant increases in foundation aid, and that should make our district whole. So if you look at this graph, the green represents the foundation aid that we were paid in those fiscal years, and the blue represents what we should have been paid in those years. So as you can see, and actually the data goes back at least 5 to 10 years before this as well, showing how significantly underfunded Oswego has been. But as you can see, over the last few years and next year, we're projected to be level to what the standard should have been for foundation aid that the district should be receiving. So people have asked, we don't really understand what a revenue-based budget is. And it's probably because of me, because I talk about this all day, and sometimes I don't make it so that the regular person understands. So I'm going to try that today, so bear with me. So we know that we have to have a balanced budget. Our revenue needs to equal our expenditures every year. So most of the time, you figure out what your expenses are projected for the next year, and then you look to see if you have enough revenue to support that budget. We haven't had to do that this year. Because of the increase in foundation aid, we have had excess revenue, almost $6 million more than we had last year. So we base this budget on the revenue that we are expected to receive. With that additional revenue, we have been able to include some, in the budget, some programming for our students, more equipment needs, and other areas that affect the school day. For example, maybe some infrastructure things that we have put off, and now we're able to do those things. So the whole goal is to create a budget that is equal to our revenue. So some really good things that we have in this budget. We have an additional nurse that is going to meet the needs of our students. That nurse will be a floating nurse to give coverage to all of our schools. We have students that move around a lot, so we have to make sure that if a nursing need in one of our schools, that we have that nurse available. A music teacher at the middle school to address student load. We have a music teacher there that has been doing a lot of work, and which we appreciate, but this is to provide additional support. Additional grounds worker to help with the stadium and field use. Our facilities are used daily, and we need someone there to look at the stadium and to make sure that the trash is cleared out and the stands are cleaned and everything looks as good as it was before any event had started. We've talked before about moving our 5-hour typist to 7 hours. All of our elementary school principals had asked for this, and it's because, you know, their day doesn't stop at 5 hours. They have parents coming in, they have buses to call, and that's really one of the things that they really asked for, was for their second 5-hour typist to become a 7-hour typist. Lastly, in terms of staffing additions, to alleviate the problems that we're having in transportation due to driver shortages, due to employees being sick, or even using their allotted vacation time, we are in the budget providing a head bus driver to assist with increased training, additional paperwork, and then if they need to, work as a dispatcher. So some programming additions to the budget. Professional development for our teachers on the New York State Next Generation Learning Standards. There's going to be continued work and programming on English language arts. And there's the implementation of the new iReady math curriculum, which is through K-8. Continuation of payment for AP and college courses, and support for STEM programming. So as you can see, this is our revenue that is being projected. Our property taxes are estimated to increase, which our property taxes is also known as the tax levy, is projected to increase $383,890. That is 1.44% increase. Pilots are showing flat, and our state aid, excuse me, is increasing $6.6 million. The majority of that is due to foundation aid. Our building aid on the emergency project, which we had in the current budget, so there is a decrease there of $2.8 million. And other revenue, there's a change of $301,000. So as you can see, our revenue, total revenue is going up $4.4 million. Our administrative budget is going up $978,000, the capital budget $792,000, and our program budget, which, as I've said before, which is the largest part of our budget, which includes teachers, programming, BOCES programs, anything that touches the students in their education is within that budget, and that is increasing $4.4 million. So our budget is going up $6.1 million. This is the chart that I've shown before in the previous presentations, which shows that in 2023, our tax levy was 0, and it is going up 1.44%. This is the graphical representation of our tax levy. As you can see, there were some high peaks in there, but that was due to the Constellation pilots going on and off, and it has significantly decreased and then went up a little, and it was flat over the last few years. So people have asked, well, what happens if the budget is defeated by the voters? Well, there are three options. The board can adopt the contingency budget without going back to the voters. The contingency budget was provided, or will be provided, in the newsletter that will be being mailed. And in that, the levy cannot be greater than the tax levied for the prior year. Districts must charge all facility use where there is no cost to the district. So for example, if a group wants to come in and they want to come in during school time and we have support staff there, then fine. If it requires additional coverage by personnel or additional people, we have to charge for that. All non-essential maintenance is eliminated. This is an interesting one because what does that mean, non-essential? There was a case in education law where it said, well, you know what, we need to buy copiers, and are copiers essential or non-essential? Well, it went up to state ed. They determined that, yes, copiers are essential in there. So you really have to look at everything that you want to do on a case-by-case basis. There are no capital expenditures, and that doesn't mean our capital projects. That means our buses. No consulting services to review district operations. We don't have any of those in the budget. When Dr. Calvin was here, he did all of those consulting services and had all of those reviews done, and so that wouldn't affect the budget. And then any new equipment is eliminated unless it's necessary to maintain the educational program or health and safety of staff and students. So, you know, that could be maintenance equipment. Maybe we have something in facilities that we were projecting to buy and now we can't. That would be anything for athletics if it's not with health and safety for students. So that would be equipment across the board. Option 2 is to present the original budget for a second vote or bring a revised vote to the public. And that revote would happen on the third Tuesday in June unless the date conflicts with religious observations. And option number 3 is to adopt a contingency budget and present one or more propositions to fund services that can't be provided without approval. So that might be, you might want to bring back a contingency budget, and maybe you want to add something back that was taken out of a contingency budget and find other financing and bring a proposition back for that option. So the difference between the proposed budget and the contingent budget is $560,300, which is less than 1% of the total budget. Some things that are coming up. May 10th, the budget notice will be mailed. On May 16th, the annual budget vote will be held. And as you know, our polling sites for District 1 are in the Scriber Fire Station. District number 2, the Crisafulli Ice Rink. District number 3 is at Elam Grace Church. And district number 4 is again at the Oswego Town Hall. If anyone doesn't know where they're supposed to vote, they can always call the board clerk and she can give them that information. So we have a number of propositions going to the voters as well. And the first proposition is for our budget. Shall the Board of Education adopt a budget for the Oswego City School District in the amount of $103,332,823 for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2023.
103 million.
Oh, what did I say? Oh, I'm sorry, 103 million. Proposition number 2 is for the purchase of our student transportation vehicles. And this is to allow for the purchase and bonding of not to exceed $1.4 million for the purchase of transportation vehicles. And if that one, if the budget does go to a contingent vote, that one we would have to check with council, and this one gets passed. we would have to check with legal to see what that would do. I'm pretty sure that one would be defeated. Proposition number 3 is our energy performance contract. This is for the energy performance contract, which is not, and to bond for that energy performance contract not to exceed $5 million. This proposition has already been approved by the school board, and that is in their purview. What this proposition does is it is asking for voter authorization to receive an extra 10% of building aid from the state of New York for that project. So our building aid runs about 87 to 89%. That means that the board has approved an energy performance contract that allows us to get 70, say it's 78% aid back. If this proposition were to pass, we would get another 10% aid back from New York State. Proposition number 4 is for bonding. The first one is to approve the additional 10%. This one is to approve the bonding for the energy performance contract up to $5 million. Proposition number 5 is for the voters to allow the establishment of a technology and an equipment reserve not to exceed $3 million. And this is to be funded for any surplus at the end of the year. If you recall when we had our meeting with Rick Timms, he had said that this is one of the reserves that the district should have in a bad budget year. Equipment and technology that are not directly related to students are always the first to go. So that would be a very good reserve to have.
Nancy, for people who don't know who Rick Timms is,
Rick Timms is a financial planner, advisor for school districts, and he did a study last year of our district, and he was the one who did a 5-year plan, which we had mirrored to date, showing that the district is in a good financial position as of today. But looking down the road, we really have to make we have to plan for when the federal grants go away, which he mentioned, ARP and ESSER 2, and this is part of that plan. Proposition number 6, excuse me, is to build a bus reserve fund not to exceed $5 million. So there is actually some savings if we pay cash for buses instead of bonding for them. And so this reserve would allow us to purchase buses or student transportation vehicles for that. And that reserve is not to exceed $5 million, and the term is 10 years. And then the last proposition is for the Oswego Public Library. Their budget is $1.4 million, an increase of $27,769. And that is the end of the budget presentation.
Any questions from the board?
Sure. Yes, please. Proposition 1, the overall budget. Nancy, you outlined a few options. Number 1 is going contingency without going back, and the other 2 options have votes. Do we have an idea about how much it costs us to run a vote in the district?
The last time that I looked, it's probably $12,000 to $15,000.
Okay. And so really for option 1, as you said, because of the way that the other budget, the contingency budget works, it's only a difference of $560,000.
That's correct.
So even the contingency budget would be at 102.7.
That is correct.
Good, thank you. The second one was just a clarification for my own words. for proposition number 3. Because we're asking for because we're asking the voters to vote on this, a yes vote is saying we would like free money from the state, and a no vote is no thank you, keep the money, we don't need it.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to share, I think maybe the three of us, Tom, you and I had been at one of the NISBA trainings when one of the people who brought that lawsuit, that actually dates back to the 1990s, who brought that lawsuit against the state for the small city school districts and other rural districts spoke. And actually, the state did not settle with them. The governor just said, okay, we'll pay. So just for that recognition, and we can see what a huge impact it has made and would have made over the past 2 decades had we had the funding formula actually funded.
That's absolutely correct, and I was talking with the superintendent earlier, and we were just talking about all of the things that because we have been underfunded for so many years, we were not able to provide for the students.
All right. So we had one person sign up for the public hearing on the budget. The Oswego City School District Board of Education welcomes public comment at this portion of the meeting using the following guidelines. Each speaker who signed up is permitted 3 minutes for their comments. Speakers may not yield time to others. All comments must be directed to the board president. The board will listen to comments and input, but will not necessarily debate or discuss items. Operational matters will be directed to school administration for handling. The board is not permitted to address personnel or individual student matters in open session. We don't have to worry about repetitious comments. The board president has the authority to end a speaker's comments or close public session. Any additional written correspondence or letters may be directed to the board clerk for distribution to the board. The board expects proper decorum at all times, and please state your name and address before speaking. Our first speaker is Sean Callan.
Mine's not related. I might have signed the wrong one because mine's not related to the budget specifically.
So we can
It's
put-
general. Mine's general.
We can put it in the next one. There will be.
Yeah. You're not, you don't want to speak to the budget?
No, thank you.
Okay, yeah, I'll carry it over, and we'll have you speak at the open meeting. All right, so seeing no comments from the public on the budget meeting, or the budget hearing, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Pam. Second?
I'll second.
And Jim. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, meeting is adjourned. It is 5:23 PM, and I would like to call our regular meeting to order. We'll start with the floor to the public. I'm not going to read that again. Sean, you want to come right up?
Thank you. Sean Callan. Address is 3239 State Route 48 in Oswego. I'm actually stepping up this evening to ask for an answer on a job order that's been placed within the school district. Give you some background. A couple of years ago, the Buck Boosters, with the support of a lot of Oswego community businesses, came up with an idea for flags to be flown over at our stadium, welcoming the competitors into our new stadium. So we came up with the designs and had them created. It was around $1,400 for the flags and the poles and the hardware to have them mounted. This decision was supported at that point in time by the interim athletic director and by the high school principal. The day before I was about to come down and have a last meeting with the grounds crew, unfortunately, the previous superintendent, with lack of vision on athletics and supporting our competitors, shot it down where we couldn't put the flags up in our new stadium anymore. So it was tabled. When a few weeks ago, I brought it back to the athletic director, who brought it through the right channels. And we do have support now again to put the flags up. There's 14 of them. There's 2 Buck flags on each side, and then the 2 divisions that we play against. Again, when they come here, we felt that it would be welcoming. Certainly aesthetically, it'll make our stadium look nicer, even nicer than it does. And it kind of goes with sportsmanship. One of the reasons that it was rejected by the previous superintendent was that he felt we didn't need to promote other teams. So if we just flew all of the buck flags, that would be good, but why do we have to fly the flags of our competitors? Well, oddly enough, before any competition, athletic competition, there's a reading that says, you know, as part of Oswego athletics and fans, we want you to support the people that we're playing against. So the boosters were kind of confused on that. So anyway, bringing us back to most recently, we do have the support. We were going to come, a couple Buck Booster members, so to get the flags up before the end of the sports season, and we were told that due to the union, and of course we have to respect all of that, but that we couldn't help with that process, so a work order had to be filed, and I'm just very concerned because I see a lot of lack in what we're able to do with the current amount of staff that we have for grounds, that when that's going to get, you know, addressed and when the flags could get up in the stadium before the end of the sports season. So I just wanted to bring it to the board's attention that I am looking, the boosters are looking for a date when that work order could be filled so that we can enjoy what the community has come to us and helped us out with, beautification and support of our athletic program. Appreciate your time.
Okay. What's that? No. Yeah. What was that? Sorry, I can't, this paper, I always lose my place on this paper. Okay, so our next item of business are items for the Board of Education items. So the first A is, normally we have our organizational meeting on July 1st. This year, our July 1st is a Saturday. So Diane and I actually went back and looked at 2017, which was the last time this happened. And so we do it on the next business day, which in this case is going to be on Wednesday, July 5th. So I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that, but that we'll set our organizational meeting, and we do have to vote on this, but we'll set our organizational meeting for Tuesday, July 5th. I'm sorry, Wednesday, July 5th, because Tuesday is July 4th and is the holiday. Is there a motion for A?
I'll move it.
Dave, is there a second?
Second it.
Any discussion?
Lisa, is that the meeting that's at 9 o'clock the next morning?
Yes.
And it'll be right here? Or
Probably in the
Probably the library.
In the library, I'm not, I guess the location will be TBD.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so the second item on our agenda has to do with facilities naming. So this has come up a few times. We had talked about going back to our policy, which we did, about board naming, or about the naming of facilities. And so Sean had brought up, I guess, 2 meetings ago, the specific recommendations again. So one is to address the naming of Wilbur Field, which, as people know, was the playing field for a long time, and then when the stadium moved, the name didn't move with it, and so the naming of the field, and then also a proposal to name, I believe it was the weight room, after Michelle Wink. So we talked about this a little bit, and basically we have, I think it's easy to write these resolutions, right? And I actually started and shared the resolutions with everyone on the board. But then when we had agenda review and brought back something that Sean had mentioned, which was if we want to do a committee for this, he would be willing to be on that committee. And so what I would like to do is have some discussion among the board for today about whether we want to just go ahead and name those two, so it would come up at the next meeting, have the resolutions to name Wilbur Field and the weight room. Or if we want to establish a committee to look at this. And I think the benefits of establishing a committee to look at it are to, I mean, we would task them with a few things, right? So one would be identifying spaces that could be named, identifying maybe criteria for naming, identifying, the possibility of removing a name in the future. This is something that SUNY had to do a few years ago, as people who got honorary degrees were no longer wanting to be honored. So we may want to have a process in place for that. But also for setting forward a process for the future so that it's not like this in the future, where it's like nobody's really quite sure how to do it or by what criteria, or for how long the name should stand. And so there's several issues. So I wanted to open that up for discussion and get people's opinions.
I guess I myself would like to see a committee to get people involved in that and finally come on up with have something in place for the future.
Sean, do you want
I could go either way with it, but I'd rather see a committee formed just to give proper what's due to the people that have gone above and beyond in this district. The two that are named here and another one, hopefully if we ever get a softball field. I'm not very positive about that right now, but I would like to see the committee to give these people that have gone above and beyond for the school district their opportunity to put their name on something that I feel that they worked for and deserved.
So I guess maybe David, to kind of speak to what you're saying, you mentioned being that it would go through the right process. So I wonder if we're actually talking maybe about two different things, one being a committee for naming of current areas that we have in mind, versus maybe more how I heard you, David, was the policy committee, clarifying what is our policy for selection. You know, the policy could say, you shall form a committee. The policy could say, you make an announcement of recommendations, you solicit input. There's a whole matter of ways that I can think about that. So, yeah, I guess I'm just wondering if we may be talking about two different things.
Yeah, I think you are actually talking about two different things. But I would also like to state that this board, maybe 2-3 months ago, when we had the discussion regarding naming of Wilbur Field, unanimously this board had said, we are not taking that name away. And I believe at that time it was left at who's purchasing the sign or when can we get a plaque. So we did not do a formal resolution, but it was a majority of this board. Everybody totally agreed that Wilbur Field, the name can remain, and it would just move over to the stadium. So I did want to clarify that. And I have to agree with Jim. I think we are talking about two separate things, only because the policy as it stands right now is rather vague. So policy committee should focus on cleaning that up and, getting some really more direct criterion in that. Like Jim said, it might be form a committee. But it is two different things. First off, we are talking about two individuals, which would be for Wilbur Field and then the weight room for Michelle Wink. I think that at this point, that's what we need to address right now, and we can work with policy committee for future naming of facilities, rooms, whatever it may be.
Yeah, so then if we follow those lines, what my suggestion would be is that this board goes forward with the public opinion that those two namings for those two particular areas is what we're offering, what we're believing, and solicit the opportunity for feedback, and that in a future meeting, we can actually have a resolution that codifies those two namings. And we've now given notice. We have time, and there will be another public meeting on it. But then also ask the policy committee, for those members who will be on the board next time, to look at the policy to kind of firm it up, make it less vague. So I'd be in support of both of those.
And I also would like to ask that, as we do this naming, like at the board meeting, that we may pass this resolution, let's let the community know what these individuals did, why we feel their name belongs on a stadium, a field, a room, whatever. Because to just come in and have a resolution saying we're naming this without why, our community doesn't know what these individuals have done for this school district. So I think that it's important to have that in the meeting or at the meeting that we do the resolutions. It doesn't necessarily have to be part of the resolution, just part of the education.
So, I mean, generally, resolutions have a bunch of whereas clauses that establish, and that's kind of what I left. I think I tagged Sean, like, to help fill that part out. Although there are some other people who I think can help fill it out. I was talking with Mark Mirabito about it at work. But so, I mean, I think from what I am hearing, I think actually it does make sense to, like, I'm fine with not putting this off to a committee and just bring the resolutions forward, but then have the policy committee address setting the much more specific criteria of other spaces, and also not just for athletics. Like, we have a lot of people probably who we would want to honor, or maybe in the future that we want to honor. And this is the other thing, is like ensuring that future generations can also honor who they want to, and we don't just name everything and sort of preclude them from having that right. So a lot of issues, I think, to consider. But otherwise, so I shared the resolution. I can go in and fill in more of it, but if people can also,
Have all the stuff for both
okay.
people to add in all the whereases, or whereases, whatever the plural of that is.
Yep.
I didn't know if we were voting on this tonight or where we were going to go with it, but just to get the discussion out on there to start this step forward. I don't expect everything to be named after somebody, but the two people and a third, possibly soon, all deserve the honor that they need to have their name on something. And I agree with anything else. If it's, we talked about this when we were bringing back football from COVID, whatever gets a kid to school, whatever their passion is, whether it's art, music, theater, sports, whatever it is, those people should get their just due if they've made an incredible step towards any program in this district.
Yeah, and so, so we're not going to vote on it tonight because we need to see the resolution, but we'll get that and put it out there. And then this is also, we've talked about this as a board, but this model of having discussion before we have to vote on something is something that I'm a fan of. I think it does better for all of us, and so hopefully it'll lead to better decisions. Did you want to say something, Jeff?
I'm getting pretty bold here. Actually just wanted to add, not about the resolutions. I think you can bring those. It sounds like they're going to come forward, and that's wonderful. Separate and aside from that, I just wanted to offer another option to you. The policy committee is one avenue. Normally in a policy, at the bottom of the policy, for instance, all the policy committee might have to do is state that the superintendent, I won't be here long enough to do that, but the superintendent is charged with developing administrative regulations, which would go behind the policy, which usually would provide much more detail as to a future committee and who would be on it, and a process, and all those kinds of things. So that's just another option rather than putting that all in one policy. The policy does have right to punt, if you will, to the administration to develop and require us to develop regs for all of you to see. So just another option.
Yeah, no, I think I don't think policies actually should have such detail in it. Like, we can have guidelines that the policy committee or others can put together, but yeah, we don't, yeah. Okay. There's something else for the policy committee that I think needs to come up. Jim, you had wanted to change some language in the concussion policy. So I know that Diane and I were looking at the calendar to see if we could squeeze in a policy committee meeting. So I will be in touch with the people on it'll be after the vote, obviously, because she's incredibly busy with like running the vote. But we'll see if we can squeeze in our one last policy committee meeting this year for also the regular round of policies that we have to update. Okay, is there any other discussion on this? We'll have items from the board later as well, but this is. Okay, so seeing none, we will move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Before I begin my report, I was hoping that I could ask that everyone take a brief moment of silence for the tragedies that occurred to students at both Fulton and Fayetteville-Manlius School District, my former school district, and certainly Fulton right down the road. I'm not sure if this is normally done or appropriate, but I would ask that we take just a few seconds to be able to show our support for the families, the friends, and the school communities, which are really hurting right now. So if I could have a moment of silence for that before I begin my report, I'd appreciate it. Some upcoming events. I've tried to stay away from the upcoming events and anything related to the high school as much as possible because I didn't want to step on Maura's toes like I did last time, but she's not here, so I probably should have put a few more in, so I apologize. But first and foremost, I wanted to remind everybody that on Friday, May 5th, which is this Friday, the K through 8 staff have a professional development day for the entire day, so there are no K through 8 students here on Friday. And at our high school, we have high school students being asked to come in the morning, to attend in the morning, and then the afternoon is a professional development day for our staff, our faculty here at the high school. So, and that was due again, as we mentioned before, to the modification in the calendar due to the fact that the high school had one additional emergency closing day above what the other schools had. This Friday and Saturday, we have a high school drama production called Puff, and Puff, as I understand it, has something to do with Hogwarts, and if I understood it correctly, so it looks very entertaining and very fun, so certainly go out and support the students at our high school drama production. Sunday, May 21st, Oswego Middle School's Top 50 Student Ceremony is coming up, and I understand that board members, some board members attend on occasion. So if you are interested in attending, the principal has asked that you let Diane know, and she'll keep a list because there's food involved, and she wants to make sure that there's enough food. Not that she's saying anything about how much you eat. She just wants to make sure she has a good head count. On May 30th, the high school has their Top 100 Student Ceremony. That was just announced recently. Thursday, June 15th, we have athletic awards, which are in our stadium, weather permitting. If not, it'll be moved inside, and certainly encourage everybody to come and support our student athletes as both our seniors and our teams will be receiving recognition that evening. Just a reminder that we have graduation on Saturday, June 24th at 10 a.m. in the morning. And of course, I wanted to mention that we have a budget vote on May 16th, as was mentioned, and polls are open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. I'm very proud of this picture that I took from the Student Campus Center in SUNY Oswego. I was there last week for a meeting with Micron and individuals in our community to discuss what the relationship between Micron and Oswego County and what that might mean for all of our industries here and including our school district as well. And we had great roundtable discussions. And one of the things that I think moving forward for Oswego City School District that will be important is really to discuss how do we help our students who have interest to be prepared and ready for careers or new careers that Micron are going to have available. Some discussions came up regarding coursework related to semiconductors and certainly STEAM, as Nancy mentioned in the budget, is going to be a big part of that. So that was a really good conversation with lots of different people, Oswego Health, Novellus, everybody, lots of people around the table. I was lucky enough to attend the National Honor Society for the high school on Sunday. And the junior high National Honor Society also had an induction on April 30th. And then I wanted to mention, didn't make the slide because I handed this in early, but I wanted to mention that yesterday, Lisa Carter and I and Ryan Lanigan all attended the Oswego Health kickoff press conference for Mental Health Awareness Month, which is May. Although it was a very rainy day and we were in a tent, it held up. Mike was there. And lots of great speakers, lots of moving stories, and lots of great information from many different community organizations that work to help our community deal with issues related to mental health, awareness, removing stigmas of people who need support for mental health. And Mr. Lanigan also spoke, and it was important that he noted lots of things that are going on here this month related to mental health, including an event on May 17th that I wanted to mention that begins at 5 p.m. here at the high school. And it is the community really coming together to discuss and share information related to mental health services in the area, both for our students and for everyone. And there is going to be a teen panel, and then there will be followed by an adult panel in the auditorium, I believe. And the community is welcome to attend that. So the last thing I wanted to mention was that there was a very nice video shown of a PSA, public service announcement that's been made specifically to share in this community. And perhaps at a future meeting we'll be able to show that. That's the end of my report.
Okay, so moving on to the consent agenda, which I just accidentally closed my tab. We just have a few items on the consent agenda today. The OHS and OMS extra classroom support, thank you. Extra classroom reports from March, the treasurer's consolidated report from March, the special education board report from May 2nd, the minutes of the executive session on April 25th, and the minutes of the City BOCES administrative meeting on budget vote and board member elections on April 26th. Is there a motion for the consent agenda? Thank you.
I'll move it.
I got it now. Thanks, Dave. Is there a second?
Second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next, we have personnel. Bob.
Good evening, everyone. The first two items on the personnel agenda are staff retirements. So I'd like to just recognize the people that are on there. Our first, we have Rachel Baker from the middle school. She's a school psychologist since September 1st, 2001. Our second retiree is from Oswego High School, Karen Button, who has served as a Spanish teacher since February 2nd, 1994. Third retiree is Crystal Dudley, who has served in two capacities, a teacher aide and a teaching assistant since September 2nd, 2008. And our support staff, we have Kathleen Schur, who has served as a school bus driver and a grounds worker since March 7th, 2001. So items A and B as presented.
Is there a motion for A and B as presented?
I'll move it.
Okay, Dave and Pam, any discussion?
Just a thank you to those folks for their years of dedicated service to the district and our students.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Okay. Items C through E are professional staff recommendations as presented.
Is there a motion for C through E as presented?
Move it.
Thanks, Pam. Second?
I'll second.
Jim, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. Items F through J are support staff recommendations as presented.
Is there a motion for F through J as presented?
I'll move it.
Dave, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Pam. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And our last two are items K through L, which are substitute and temporary employees and extra compensatory recommendations. Items K through L as presented.
Is there a motion for K and L as presented?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Pam. Second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Jim. Any discussion?
Once again, it's just nice to see our students returning as adults on our substitute list.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. And now we are on to finance. Nancy?
A is our annual agreement with city BOCES for continuing adult education programming. B is a donation that we received for Special Olympics. C is for the board to approve the establishment of the Edith Warner Memorial Scholarship. D is a donation from Charities Aid Foundation to Fitcher Park School. And E is our annual agreement with SUNY La Spark for our transportation weather forecasting. So A through E as presented.
Is there a motion for A through E as presented?
Move it.
Thank you, Pam. Second?
I'll second it.
Jim, any discussion?
Just a couple. Thank you kindly for the donations. A huge thank you to the Edith Warner Estate for their establishment of the upcoming scholarship to help some seniors along the way. And Nancy, what took so long for the last Spark agreement? It's like dated a couple months back.
So the agreement that's attached was, it's for the current year, right? I think this is the one for, I don't have my paperwork with me. Hold, please.
Yeah.
Hold, please.
March 31, 2023, from November 1, 2022 to March 31, 2023. So it's actually already been expired. Is that, did we just get the wrong attachment?
That may be,
Okay.
because it should be the one for next year, because I know that the board has already approved the one for the current year. So I do apologize. I will make sure that the correct attachment goes up on board docs. So actually, it is for the agreement for 2023-24 school year.
Do we want to pull it or vote?
We
I
can
mean,
pull,
are
we
are
can pull it.
Okay.
There's no rush on this.
Okay. So can I,
I'll move to table, or wait, did we move them all together? We did, okay. So I'll move to split the vote that E, the agreement with Lee Spark, is a separate vote.
okay, is there a second for that motion to separate out E?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Pam. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and now,
Now-
is there any further discussion?
Well, now I'll move to table E.
Okay,
I'll move to table E, agreement with Lee Spark.
I'll second it.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so is, any further discussion on A through D? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So student representative, I did actually get an email from Maura, and she apologized that she is not going to make the meeting tonight, so.
Before we go into the next agenda, I I did want to thank Nancy Squires for her work on the budget and her work putting this presentation together this evening. She did that on top of doing lots of dispatching duties this past week, and so thank you for approving the sub-dispatcher tonight. But I did want to thank her publicly for all of her hard work, so thank you, Nancy.
Are there any other items from the board this evening?
Just a couple. Let's see. I actually did attend the National Honor Society Owl's Head chapter induction. It was wonderful. And I saw Lisa there too. It's always one of my favorites. Let's see. There were some community service youth awards presented by Assemblyman Barclay. 3 were Oswego students, Lily Allison, Addison Stepien, and Quinton Denkenberger, and that's for their volunteering and work. They work tirelessly.
Yeah,
Wow,
you
that
go.
was hard. To serve and enrich their communities. There was several students from all districts received those. I happened to catch that in the paper today. And let's see. I have a question about, and I don't need the answer today, Nancy, fence guard toppers at the middle school field. I know we had discussed it prior with Dr. Calvin, and he had thought that they were not a very expensive item that would not have to be in any sort of capital project, but I don't think anything obviously has come of it since there are no fence toppers out there for that track and football field. That would be a safety issue. I would love to see that addressed and taken care of. Also, I know out there we have the gates at both ends of the field. There was never a man gate ever put in the middle. Could we investigate to see what the price of a man gate by the bleachers would be? And that is just sheerly, basically when there's a track meet going on, the athletes are up in the bleachers so that they're not on the infield to cause confusion and blocking of visual of seeing the runners to the judges and the scorekeepers. But when the kids have to come down like off the bleachers to put the hurdles on the track or take them off, they have to go to one end or the other to get in, and it's just, it needs to have a man gate, like in the middle, if it could be done, if the price was doable. And I'm wondering about summer school. I've not seen, like, are we doing extended school year for anyone who needs it, or is it just special ed? Have we determined that yet? Just have that question. And one more comment. This comes from Lady Bird Johnson. Children are likely to live up to what you believe of them. I'm going to leave us with that.
Well, Lisa, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we certainly are having the special education programming this summer.
Correct. We do have special education summer school for students who require that based on special education needs.
And I'm sorry that Karen, Humphrey, and Amanda are not here tonight, but they'll be able to answer the question. I know they do
Yeah, I
plan on
don't need the
having.
answer tonight,
They do
'cause-
plan on having some summer school, an opportunity this summer, but specifically what grades and the criteria, I wouldn't want to answer for them.
Thank you.
Okay.
I got something I want to.
Go ahead,
Two
Sean.
things. First, from the schedule of events that he went through, on Friday, June 16th at 11 o'clock at the stadium, the 8th grade OMS recognition ceremony for kids moving on to high school is happening that morning. And the second thing is I got a call on the way in here today from the Oswego Lacrosse Club, and they have a concern with our fee schedule. I just want to let this board know that you're going to hear some backlash from the lacrosse club coming up because they haven't been charged according to them in a decade or so, and they just got the fees for the fields at Turtle Street or the stadium. And they're going to be a pretty vocal bunch. So I don't know if we need to look at the fee schedule again for feeder programs or what we consider feeder programs or how that goes, but they're not going to go away quickly.
All right, so we can, I know that I'm not on that committee, but I can follow up and see what that committee's final, where they are, so. I also just I had said that I would do something at the end of the last meeting and then didn't do it. Preparing for a board meeting, I had put together a PowerPoint presentation that I'd shared out a while ago, and I'd meant to get it on the website before tonight. I apologize for that, but I'm sending it to Jamie and Diane and copying you right now. So maybe we can get it on the website under Board of Ed.
So, sorry, didn't mean to say, talk this. Sean, I had somebody speak to that same concern. It wasn't the exact thing that there was a new charge. It was the same group, wondering about our facilities usage. And I inquired and talked with Nancy, and I know David's on the group. Where are we at with that? Are we about ready to present it to the board so we can have then public input, and then at another meeting, a vote on what our facilities fee structures will look like?
Is this on? So what we've done, I didn't have it on, sorry. What we've done is we've had at least 3 or 4 meetings with the committee, which consist of a board member, a community member, the athletic director administrative assistant, and myself, and then it was my assistant director who has since moved on to another district. So that was the committee. We've looked at all of the people who have put in to use the fields and the buildings and the classrooms. We've looked at each of the organizations. We need one more meeting, however, that was put on the back burner while I was trying to tie the budget up and get everything I had to do ready for the budget vote. So with any luck, I can have a meeting, our final meeting, next week, and then bring something to the board at the next board meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other items from the board? All right, so I believe we have a need for an executive session tonight for the purposes of a personnel matter. Is there a motion to move to executive?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Jim. Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it is 6:02 PM. There won't be a need, won't be a need for a vote after this. So then at 7 PM, the Meet the Candidates starts. So, okay, thank you.